Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Lee, and we're going to make these cute cat coasters today. We'll get through one coaster. It's pretty easy for a pattern. There's only 6 rows. 5 of them are pretty similar, and then the last row takes us into our cat shape where we make the ears and the tail and this texture. So it should be pretty easy for a beginner. The yarn I'm using right now is cotton, and it's KC cotton, which was from Joann Fabrics. So that that yarn isn't going to be available anymore. If you have one of my kits, that's the yarn I have in my kit, so it shouldn't be an issue. But any other cotton yarn should work. I think wool would also work nicely in it. In my other kits, I use Lion Brand 24/7, which I don't have right here, but I don't think that's as absorbent as the regular cotton yarn. So for coasters, I don't think they're as good. So what you'll need is the yarn. Like I said, only about 15 grams or so, depending on the weight of the yarn. So not very much yarn. It's a good stash buster. A crochet hook. I'm using a size 3 crochet hook, which is what you would have in your kit if you have one of my kits. A darning needle to just weave in the ends. At the end, they'll just be the beginning end and the end, and then a pair of scissors. And that's it, and we can get started. The first thing we're going to do is take the end of the yarn and make a magic ring, and that's what we'll use to start the center of the coaster. If you are not familiar with the magic ring, I have another tutorial that's pretty short. You can look at that. It'll go over it slowly. I'll go over it right now, but not quite as slowly. I take the end of the yarn and I hold it with my thumb on the inside of my hand with the end hanging down. Then I wrap the working end around, and as I bring it up back to the inside of my hand, I cross it over and then pull it around to the top of my hand and then hold on to it with my ring finger. So now I have 2 strands of yarn on the top of my hook, on the top of my fingers. I take my hook and I go under the first one and over the second piece of yarn, and I pull that second piece of yarn through. And as I pull that through, I give it a twist. So now it's on my hook with a twist. And then this is the kind of complicated part. I take the hook with the loop on my hook, stick it back under that second piece of yarn, and then pull that piece through the loop that's on my hook. That's the hard part. There's a ton of different ways to make magic rings. If you're not comfortable with this way, you can look on YouTube and find different ways. I'll go through that one more time. So if you need to skip a little bit ahead, you can do that. But okay, I hold the end piece on my 2 fingers with my thumb. I cross over the working yarn over the first piece of yarn and have 2 pieces of yarn on my hands, on the top of my hands. I go under the first one, pull the second one through, and give it a twist as I pull it up. Then I go back under that second piece of yarn and pull that loop through the loop that was on my hook. And then you have the magic ring. And it's magic because once you put the stitches into it, you can pull it tight and then it closes up the hole. All right, first thing we're going to do is chain 3. Chain, again, I believe I have a tutorial on this, is you yarn over and pull through the loop that's on your hook. That's 1 chain. Do it again. 2. That's 2. 3. So now you have 3 chains on your hook. We're going to count this 3 chains as a stitch throughout the whole pattern. So when I say there's 12 stitches at the end of a row, there's really 11 plus the 3 chains, if that makes sense. So now what you're going to do is you're going to put 11 more double crochets, 11 double crochets into this magic circle, and that will be our first row. Now again, if you need to have a more detailed tutorial on a double crochet stitch, you can look at another tutorial on my YouTube, but just to go through it a little bit here, you yarn over and you insert your hook into the loop, into the magic circle. It's a little difficult because it gets bigger and smaller, and it's hard to hold on to the magic loop. So this is probably one of the harder rows just to get started if you're a beginner. So once you get your hook into the circle, you yarn over again and you pull that loop through the magic circle. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again, pull through 2 of the loops on your hook, yarn over again, and pull through the last 2. And that's 1 double crochet. And then let's do it again. Yarn over, hook into the magic circle, yarn over again, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's keep going. We need to get to 11. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull it up, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. The difficulty with cotton yarn, and this one I think is a lot better than some, is it tends to split a little bit. So especially when you are a beginner, it might be difficult to catch all the pieces of yarn that you need, but just keep working at it. And if you need to start a stitch over, just start a stitch over. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. So let's see how many we have so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, including our 3 chains. 7. I'll go through these a little faster, so if you need to stop the video for a moment, just do that. And if you're having a hard time holding the loop closed, I do too, and I just kind of keep pulling it and trying to hold it with my couple of my fingers on my not hook hand. 2 more. All right, so let's make sure we have our 3 chains and 11 double crochets. These are pretty easy to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Great. So what we're going to do to end this row is we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that we had before. So right here, this is the first double crochet. This chain looking thing is part of the stitch of the double crochet. So the chain is 1, 2, 3. We're going to slip stitch into this chain right here. And slip stitch, again, you can look at a different tutorial if you want more detail, but you have a loop, the loop that's on your hook. You insert your hook into part of the chain and you pull up a loop. You yarn over and pull up a loop, and then you take that loop and you pull it through the loop that was on your hook, and that closes the circle. And then we're going to do the same thing for the next row, but we're just going to make the circle bigger and bigger. So the first thing we're going to do is chain 3, and again it's going to count as a stitch, and in the second row we're going to increase in each stitch. That means we're going to put 2 double crochets in each 1 double crochet, because this stitch that we just slip stitched into counts as our first stitch with this 3 chains. We are going to put our second double crochet into that same chain. So you can tell by where you pulled it where the chain is, and you're going to insert your second stitch into that chain. Don't worry, it won't necessarily be so pulled out. I was just doing that for for show. So in each of these other stitches right here, all around, you're going to put 2 double crochets. So yarn over, insert your hook into both parts of the V, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Do the same thing again into the same stitch. Get some more yarn. And you'll keep doing that around. Let's do a couple more. And make sure when you're inserting your hook into a stitch that you're inserting under both parts of the V. If you need more help on that, again, you can look at a different tutorial, but hopefully you can see this. Each stitch has a front loop and a back loop, and then what we're doing is we're inserting our hook into both loops. So I'm just going to keep double crocheting 2 stitches into every stitch all the way around. And because we started with 12 stitches, including the 3 chains, we're going to end up with 24. If you want to pause the video, I can meet you back at the end of row 2. So I'm on my last stitch of the row, and I just wanted to check in on something that I found really difficult when I first started to crochet. So you can see this stitch here. This is our last stitch, and this is the top of the stitch. I hope you can see that okay. You can see this is a double crochet, and this is the top part of the double crochet. After that, and so we'll put 2 more in here. After that is this loop that you're thinking, is this another stitch? Why do I have an extra stitch here? Well, at least that's what I used to think. But this stitch, this is not a stitch. It's the loop that we slip stitched into our chains with. So once you get to the very end of the double crochets and the last loop of the double crochets, you should have 24 stitches. And I always think it's helpful to count at the end of your row in case you skipped an increase by accident. See, this is one of those times where the loops come apart. That's okay. You just take out your stitches. You start again. Or the strings come apart a little. Just keep at it. All right, so this is the end of my row. And again, there's this weird looking loop here, but this is really the loop that just did the slip stitch, and this is where our chain 3 comes out of. So the next thing we're going to do again is slip stitch into the top of our chain 3, which is 1, 2, 3. So that's, we go through the chain, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through. So now you can see there's that annoying loop that you wonder, is that a stitch? But it is not a stitch. All right, so that was row 2. Row 3, we're going to do the same thing. 2, 3, we're going to chain 3. Instead of putting 2 double crochets in each stitch, we're going to put 1 in one stitch and then 2 in the next. 1 and then 2, 1 and 2, and that'll keep increasing our circle. So because we're starting off with 1 in the first stitch, we don't need to put another stitch into that slip stitch chain, into the chain we just slip stitched in. Instead, we're going to put 2, our increase, into the next stitch. And then the next stitch after that, we'll put in 1, and then 2 again. So 1, 1, 2, 1, and an increase, 1, 2. Keep doing that across the row. Let's just do a couple more together. 1, and an increase, one and an increase in the next. I feel the loop coming apart here. There we go. This one gets an increase. And you just keep doing that all the way around the row until the end. So I will meet you back around before we do the slip stitch. Okay, here I am again at my last stitch. I can see this loop, this V up here is connected to my double crochet, so that's my last stitch, which means it's an increased stitch. 2 double crochets will go in there. And then we're back again at my 3 chains. And again, this loop right here is not a stitch, so don't put any stitches in there. So you'll insert into the top of your chain there, pull up, yarn over, pull through a loop. Oops, not sure I'm in my chain exactly. There we go. And then pull that loop through the loop on your hook, and that's row 3. And you can pull your starting yarn tight. It'll get loose, but then at the very end we'll pull it tight, and we'll also weave in the end, and that should hold it tight. So now you've done 3 rows. Again, for row 4, we're gonna 2, 3, start with the chain 3. Now you should at this point have 36 stitches around, including the chain 3. It's a good idea to count, especially once you start doing a pattern of 1 increase, 1 increase. Sometimes you get mixed up. I don't know how many times I end up with 2 increases next to each other, or 2 single crochets, or excuse me, 2 double crochets next to each other instead of an increase. So it's a good idea to count and make sure you have the number that you should have, including your chain 3. It should be 36. And we're going to start again the next row. It's going to be a similar pattern, but instead of 1 and an increase, we're going to do 1, 2, and then an increase. So the first stitch, which is our chain 3, is going to be in 1 stitch. Then we'll do a second single crochet, a second double crochet into the next stitch, and then in our 3rd stitch we'll increase. So we'll put 2 double crochets into our 3rd stitch. So 1, 2, and then an increase. And we'll do that all around. 1, 2, so we have 1 in 1 stitch, 2nd in the 2nd stitch, and then an increase. So 2 double crochets in that 3rd, and you'll follow that pattern all the way around. For row 4, 1, 2, then an increase, and count at the end, because even though I think it's easy to count 1, 2, 1, 2, sometimes you get distracted or skip a stitch or something, and then you won't know why things aren't coming out right. So 1, or you're talking, and so you can't keep count. 1, 2, and then an increase. So just do this along the whole way, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. Okay. I am here at the end of row 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You should have 48 stitches, including the first one being your chain 3. And these stitches, like I said, are pretty easy to count. You can see them. And we're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain. My chains have been a little strange up here. I have to be more careful with the way my chain 3 looks. Looks a little wonky over there, but not enough to go back and redo the whole row. We'll make it work. All right, so now we have 4 rows. It might feel like your coaster is curling a little bit one way or the other. That could be related to your tension. If your tension was much looser in one spot or tighter in another spot, it might curl up a little, but once we get to the end, it will flatten out. And worst case, if it doesn't flatten out, you could always wet it and put it on kind of a board where you can make it flatten out. And since it's cotton, if you're using 100% cotton, you can probably iron it as well, but it really isn't an issue. You'll see at the end of this won't really be curling, and it'll be perfect to put a cup or a mug on. All right, so we're in our last circle row, row 5, and this is going to follow the same pattern that we've been doing since the beginning, which is increasing at some point. Now we were just increasing after 2 stitches, so in this row we'll increase after 3 stitches. So here's my chain 3, that's going to be in stitch number 1, and then we're going to put a second double crochet in the second stitch, so that's number 2, and then in the third stitch we're going to put a double crochet. So now you have 1, 2, 3 stitches. So then in this row, in the 4th stitch, you'll increase. So you'll do 1, 2, 3, and then an increase. 1, 2, 3, and an increase. And you'll follow this pattern all the way around to the end. 1, 2, 3, so that's 1 stitch in each of the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and in the 4th stitch you increase, and that makes your circle a little bit bigger. So we'll follow this pattern around the whole way. At the end of this row you should have 60 stitches, 60 altogether including the chain 3. So just work your way around, and we'll meet up at the end, and then we only have 1 more row. It's a big row, but we'll just be 1 more. All right, so here we are at the end of row 5. Again, you should have 60 stitches, including your chain 3 is the first stitch, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain, the 3rd chain from the beginning of the row. So now we are ready to take this circle and make it into a kitty. The first thing I want to mention is I like this having a texture around most of the kitty. Made it look a little more like fur to me than just having a smooth circle around the edge. So basically on this row, after every stitch we do, except for right here in the ears and in the tail, after every stitch we're going to do a chain 1. And that kind of creates this texture a little bit at the outside of the coaster, which I like. So that's just an FYI. So our piece looks like this so far, and this next step, it's not complicated, but to get it into the right shape, there's just a certain number and type of stitches that we need to do to get around this last circle. So let's just take it slowly and we'll get started. So for this last row, row 6, we're just going to chain 1. We're not chaining 3 this time, it's just chain 1, and for purposes of this row we'll still count it as a stitch. So you're not going to put something else into this same stitch that we're calling it. And for the next 3 stitches, you're going to do a slip stitch in each stitch plus a chain 1. So again, a slip stitch is you have a loop on your hook, you're going to go under both parts of the V, yarn over, pull up a loop, and instead of yarning over again, you're going to take this loop, just like we've been doing at the end of each row, and put that through the loop that's on your hook. So that's your first slip stitch, then chain 1. Then we're going to do a second slip stitch, chain 1 again, then a third slip stitch, make sure you have the whole piece of yarn there, third slip stitch, and a chain 1 again. Now we're going to do a half double crochet plus a chain for 2 stitches. A half double crochet is similar to a double crochet, but a little different. So you yarn over, insert your hook into the V of the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Then instead of yarning over and just pulling through 2 loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of the loops on your hook. That's a half double crochet. And we're going to chain 1 again. We're going to do another half double crochet to the next stitch. So that's like a double crochet, but you just pull through all 3. All right, now we're getting to the ear. For the ear, we put all these stitches into 1 stitch, and that gives us our ear shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 3, start with 3 double crochets, and we're going to put them all into this 1 stitch. It'll look like it won't fit, but it will. 1, 2, 3. That's the start of our ear. The next thing we're going to do is chain 3 right here. 1, 2, 3. So you have your 3 stitches in 1 stitch plus a chain 3. Now we're going to look for that first chain we just made, not the top of your double crochet, but the first chain, and we're going to make a single crochet into that chain. That might seem a little strange. So you have your hook and your loop on your hook, you go into that, the first chain you made on that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So don't make your chains too tight because you'll have to get back into it. Then yarn over and pull through. And that's going to be the top of our ear now. Now we'll do 3 more double crochets into that same stitch. And it might be a little difficult to get that first one going, but you're still working in that same stitch. I'm on my 3rd double crochet. All right, and you might need to work it out a little more, but that's basically your first ear. Okay, so at the end of your first ear, you've finished your last 3 double crochets. Do a chain 1, and then you might need to move the ear over a little bit to find your next stitch. But you're going to half double crochet into the stitch right next to the ear. So again, that just means you'll pull through all 3 loops. It's not a double crochet. And then we're going to do, well, we got to do a chain for our texture. Then we're going to do slip stitches for 7 stitches till we get to the 2nd ear. Slip stitch and chain. So slip stitch plus chain, that's 1. Slip stitch plus chain, that's 2. I think that missed a loop there. Okay, so that was 1, 2. Just try not to forget your chains. I do that a lot. It's 4, 2, 3, 4. It's a little harder to count these 5 with the stitches because you don't have the easy double crochets to follow along with, but you can always count these by looking at the stitch below the one you just did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1 more. So that's 7. Now we're going to do our 2nd ear. We're going to basically do the same thing. We're going to start with a half double crochet and a chain 1, and then everything else we're about to do is going to go into this 1 stitch. 3 double crochet, that's 3. Now 3 chains. Remember, don't make them too tight. 3 chains, single crochet into the first chain, not the top of the double crochet, but the first chain. So a single crochet right into that chain. That's your point. And then 3 more double crochets. That first one's a little hard to do. 1. Stay in that same stitch. Got 1 more. So 3. And then chain 1 for our texture. And now you've got your 2 ears. So now we're going to do a half double crochet and a chain 1 for the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, another half, so it'll be even with the other side. And now we're going to do 27 slip stitches plus chains till we get to the spot where we're going to put in our tail. 27 is the number that tends to work for me, so that's what I have in the pattern. That looks like a double crochet, doesn't it? Let's make sure I got my half double crochets and chains. I don't know if that was the chain or if I did a double crochet by accident, so let's fix that. Now my yarn's all messed up. All right, now we're good. So we're going to do 27 slip stitches, and just do your best to keep count with chains. 1, we'll do a few together and then I'll meet you. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So keep going and I'll meet you around where we get to the tail. So we've done the 27 slip stitches and chains after the second ear, and now we're going to do the tail. So we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. Oops. Slip stitch, there you go, and then we're going to chain 15. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So once you get to 15, make sure you haven't done them too tight, and still my light shadows are a little bit weird right now, but we'll do our best here because we're just about done. So what we're going to do is you're going to skip this chain, this first chain right here where your loop is coming out of. We're not going to do anything into that first chain, but you're going to make 2 half double crochets into each of the next 14 chains till you get to the very bottom, the last chain. So again, half double crochet, skip the first chain where your loop is coming out of, 1, and into that same chain make 2, and we'll do that the whole way down, and that'll start curling up. So with your chain, you see there's the V here, and on the back is the back bump, which sometimes you can crochet into that, but it doesn't really matter for our purposes of the tail. We're just going to insert our hook in between the V, into the V. Actually, we're going to yarn over first, but I'm just saying that we're going to go into the chain itself, and that's what we're putting our stitches into. So again, 2 half double crochets into each of the 14. And hopefully you haven't made them too tight so you can get all your stitches in. Keep losing a piece there. Okay, one more in this stitch. Whoops. Okay, one more. And keep going down your chain with 2 half double crochets in each chain. So there should be 14 times 2 stitches into the tail, which is 28. And as you keep working on it, you'll see that the tail starts to curl up a bit. And that's how we get our curly cute tail. So I'll meet you at the end of the 14 times 2 half double crochets, and we'll finish off to the end of the kitty. Okay, so just here we're at the last chain where we started our 15 chains. So just make sure you put your last 2 stitches into the chain. You're not going back into the slip stitch. So that's 1 and 1 more. Okay, so now we have our tail. It's mostly curly, and we'll keep going to just finish up the row, which just starts up here. You can see where all your chain 3s were. So for the rest of the row, which should be about 13 stitches, we're just gonna slip stitch and chain like we were doing. So this stitch has your slip stitch, the 28th, I guess, the one we started for the tail from the second ear. And then we're going to go into the next one, and that'll anchor the other side of the tail, slip stitch and chain. Actually, once we do that, there should be 13, so there's 14 total. So that curls up your tail right there. And now we'll do 13 more of these to get to the end of the row. Slip stitch and chain the rest of the way. Okay, so we're at the end of the row here. And I may have lost count, I'm not sure, but we're about to go into the last, or your first slip stitch. So what we're going to do is just connect the row. You'll go into your first slip stitch of the row, and you'll slip stitch into there. A little tough to get into. And that is it. So now we have our kitty. We're going to finish it off in the next step. You can curl up your tail, and we'll pull this tighter once we're ready to weave in the end, and we'll finish off this part. So what you're going to do now is cut your yarn. Leave a few inches so we can easily weave it in and secure it. And then what I do for this one is I just pull out my working yarn from that last stitch. So then it just looks like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew it into here, the next couple of slip stitches, where there's like a sort of a top V of a stitch from your chain probably. We're going to sew that in and back through the other side so it looks like a nice finish. Kind of like an invisible stitch finish, but not exactly. So I'm going to go into about the next stitch or so from the back to the front under that stitch or that chain. I'm going to pull till I like the way that looks and how even it looks on that side, kind of smoother. not a huge bump out. And then once I'm comfortable with how tight I've pulled it, I'm going to go back through the chain where we ended and out the back and pull that, and that kind of makes sort of a fake stitch there, like an invisible stitch. And then just make sure you like how it looks at this point, and then we're just going to weave in this end. Now, to weave in your ends, you want to make sure to go in one direction for a couple stitches, and it's also good to go through, like split the yarn if you can. So go through full pieces of yarn, and then you can also split the yarn. And then you need to make sure you're going back in the other direction, so that helps secure your yarn. So when we cut it off, it won't get loose. I'll just do a couple more going this way, and then we can cut it off. And I like to weave my ends in on the back so the front looks a little better. And now we'll cut off this piece of yarn, like that, and then let's just finish off our original circle, which shouldn't come loose, but if it's loose, just give it a good tug. With this cotton yarn, you shouldn't feel like you're gonna rip it if you pull tightly. It's pretty strong. Some other yarns you would just snap it right off if you pulled it like that, like velvet. So I like to start my weaving kind of into the stitches of the circle that went into the magic circle, because then when you pull that, it also helps pull the circle tight. So I'll do one or two of those where I grab the stitches, parts of the stitches that are actually in the circle. And then I feel like my circle is pulled nice and tight, and then you can just weave a couple other stitches, and then just make sure you're going back in the other direction again to secure your yarn. Just do one more of those. Well, maybe two more going in this direction. And again, it's good to go under stitches or within stitches, and then even through the yarn. All right, that looks good. So we're going to cut this yarn off too. Okay, well, then you can just shape the ears a little bit so it looks kitty-like, and shape your tail how you want it. And there you go. That's your coaster. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and please let me know if you have any questions, or if you make these coasters, please make sure to tag me here or on Instagram so I can see what you've made. Thanks so much.